It is my honor to offer some words of Torah on this morning. After 23 Avengers movies spanning more than a decade of time, a rather grim narrative had unfolded in the Marvel Universe, and the world of the good guys seemed all but lost. With our heroes, Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, Spider-Man, and many more, we watched as the supervillains took the upper hand and destroyed people and planet piece by piece. In the penultimate movie of the series, Thanos, the consummate bad guy, had used the Infinity Stones to create the Gauntlet, which allowed him to snap away half of the world's population. And finally, we arrived at the last movie of this particular timeline called Avengers Endgame. Superhero geeks around the world waited with bated breath to hear a very important phrase, a callback to the comic books. Captain America had yet to speak it out loud, but now it was their only hope against immediate destruction. And we watched as portals in the sky opened and an army of heroes arrived by the thousands. Doctor Strange and the Hulk, Black Panther and all of Wakanda, Ant-Man and the X-Men and Captain Marvel. And finally, Captain America said it. Avengers Assemble. Now, if you are like me, you had goosebumps then and you've got goosebumps now. But you don't need to be a lover of superheroes to know the feeling behind these words, Avengers Assemble, because many of us have been blessed to know that feeling at some point, that tingle of possibility and connection that comes when the people gather, when we find ourselves suddenly not alone, not just as a random face in a crowd, but as part of a gathering in which we can look around and say, these are my people, this is my place. The gathering can be huge or very small, but that tingle is real. If you can think of one time that happened for you, the tingle of possibility, the magic of being part of a gathering of people that mattered to you. It doesn't need to be on the precipice of the destruction of the universe, though it could be. It could be a rally or a protest when everyone showed up to stand together. It could be a reunion of old friends when just a glance speaks volumes. Or when CBE has come together to sing at times when our hearts needed it most. Or when Union Temple gathered night after night online during Hanukkah last year, lighting candles and sharing joy. Or maybe you felt it in a house meeting where stories were shared and relationships were formed and ideas were turned into action. Or maybe you felt it at a Shiva house, an assembly of the brokenhearted, literally being held up by their community. What did it feel like to you to know that in that moment, those were your people? Oh, how we have missed those moments. The founders of our country understood so deeply the power of a gathering of people that they enshrined it into our First Amendment as the freedom of assembly, the right to stand among others and connect with our neighbor, the freedom to show up as a group, to become a team or family, to sing or chant as one for a shared cause. In her recent book, The Art of Gathering, Priya Parker writes, in countries descending into authoritarianism, one of the first things to go is the right to assemble. Why? Because of what can happen when people come together, exchange information, inspire one another, and test out new ways of being together. It is transformational. It is transcendent. In the early 20th century, sociologist Emil Durkheim called this magical feeling, this ineffable spark of gathering, collective effervescence, which sounds only a little bit like an air freshener. He describes it as the sense of energy and harmony that people feel when they come together in a group around a shared purpose. And sociologists today note that it is something that we have been deeply missing for the past year and a half. Gathering itself has been the primary danger, and as a way to protect one another and slow this pandemic, out of love for each other, we have chosen distance and separation and isolation. And while our yearning for this collective effervescence has been muted, maybe even numbed, to protect ourselves from how much we crave it, our need to assemble is waking up from hibernation, and it is hungry. Even introverts like me can feel it. It's in the very pattern of our spiritual DNA. This need to gather, it's not only human, it is deeply Jewish. Our Torah and tradition vibrate with the instinct to gather and are saturated with the lessons of when and why and how. Queen Esther experiences it in our Purim story. Haman, the bad guy, is on the verge of destroying the Jewish people. And Esther's uncle Mordecai comes to her and implores her to go to the king and reveal her Jewish identity so that the king will intervene and stop the evil Haman. I hear you that you want to go boo. It's okay. At first she hesitates, afraid, but then she realizes that she has to take action and save her people. What are the very first words out of her mouth? Kenos et kol ha-Yehudim. Go and kenos, gather up all the Jews. Why? So she would not have to do this alone, so that the people could participate in their own redemption, so that no one would get lost in the fray. Queen Esther knew the power of gathering. And the 5 daughters of a man named Zelophehad in the book of Numbers, who are part of our 40-year journey through the wilderness, they realized during this trip that because they are unmarried and without a father, that upon their arrival to the promised land, they are not going to get a plot of land, so they're going to be homeless. As intimidating as it might be, they go and approach Moses and all of the elders in the public square, and they get this changed. But they don't go alone. The text begins, Vatikravna, meaning they drew close to each other. The 5 sisters gathered themselves and approached the decision makers to make their case as one. Alone? Who knows? But together, they give each other the courage and they successfully change God's own law for the good of all women. The daughters of Zelophehad knew the power of gathering. And Moses, who descended from Mount Sinai after 40 days, holding the tablets of the covenant, when he got down to the bottom, he didn't send out a memo or hand out pamphlets or keep it to himself. Rather, the Torah tells us, Vayakhel Moshe. Moses gathered the people, from the word kahal or kihila, community. He communitied the people up to share the words of the covenant, because until the people assembled to hear it and accept it, they were just words on a page, on a rock. But gathered in community to hear them, something happened there. They found their people. They became each other's people in that moment. Moses knew the transformative power of gathering. This is not an exceptional set of examples. It's not accidental that there are so many Hebrew words and synonyms for the word gathering. In Jewish tradition, the call to come together in moments of fear, challenge, transition, hope, and becoming often involves the act of gathering together, connecting a person to a person, heart to a heart, for some greater meaning or purpose. Without the gathering, the story itself cannot continue. And then this theme is wisely picked up on by the rabbis of the Talmud in the concept of the minyan, the need to have a group of 10 adults in order to be able to engage in certain Jewish traditions, like have a formal call to prayer, like read Torah in public, and also to mourn. In order to say the mourner's Kaddish, the rabbis made it law that at least 10 people would have to gather so that the grieving person would not disappear alone into their grief, so that the community would know that it's our job to console. The rabbis also obligate a community to celebrate with the just married couple, to ensure that no one would be alone in their joy either. The rabbis knew the power of gathering. When people gather, extraordinary things can happen. We can unleash wells of creativity that might otherwise lay dormant. We discover nascent bits of courage that come alive in company. We are afforded the chance to offer waves of comfort and to generate transcendent joy. We can feel seen and valued and needed and known. And in response, we can see and value and know our neighbor. For each person in a gathering like this is beloved. And for a year and a half, we have not really had the chance to breathe this holy air of assembly. Maybe we have felt lonely or disconnected, or on the outside looking in or out of the loop or unseen. You would not be the only person to feel any of those things. But this is what sacred community can do, that almost no other institution in communal life can do. After a year and a half of this very challenging time, it is time to reclaim this way of being and to gather intentionally, creatively, and with purpose, to deepen our relationships and to build new ones, weaving or reweaving ourselves back together. We won't always be able to do that in person, when that is not safe, as it is for some even today. But virtually when we must, and face-to-face when we can, we will find ways to gather and redraw the map back towards each other and create space for wondrous things to happen. Because inside of gatherings like this is the chance to tie ourselves to one another in transformative ways. Late in the Tanakh, we bump into a woman named Ruth. She's traveling with her sister and her mother-in-law, a woman named Naomi. Both of Naomi's sons have died, leaving Ruth and her sister widowed. They are all in great pain, having experienced profound loss together. Naomi tries to send them away, to go and live their lives and start over. But the text tells us that Ruth clings to her. Ruth says to Naomi, El asher telchi elech, amech ami. Where you go, that is where I will go. Your people will be my people. In a defining moment of her life, out of loss, Ruth found a deep gut need to cast her lot with another human being, to intertwine their stories and to connect their journeys. After feeling so detached, she needed to know, who are my people and where is my home? These are important questions today, grounding questions for us. Naomi's people would be her people, and wherever her people were, that would be her home. And in the process, Ruth discovered a whole great big family, comfort after loss, joy of true companionship, and purpose and meaning in her journey, a way to step forward into the future. This is what gathering may be for us. And we should note that Ruth's people are not her mirror image. Finding our people doesn't mean surrounding ourselves only with people who are just like us. It could be, but it often doesn't. Ruth was young. Naomi was aged. Ruth was a Moabite. Naomi was an Israelite. But they found in one another profound and enduring connection in shared values, shared experiences, and shared vision for what would come next. So this is what we will do here. To help each other find our people and find our place, or to re-find one another and to reclaim this place as home. We will gather in ways that are small and large, joyful and serious, physical and spiritual, intentional, beautiful and human. During this pandemic, as we know, we merged communities, and some of us are still figuring out how to find our people and our place here. And some are new to this community and are wondering excitedly the same. And for some, we just had a year and a half of massive disruption in our lives. And it's time to find our way back to each other again and to build and begin to build new connections. For we too, each of us now is new. So we're going to spend this year, as Parker wrote, testing out new ways of being together and to see what will come from that. What meaning might it add to our lives? What isolation might it break? And in what army of joy and care and friendship might we find ourselves in then? In some ways, we have already begun. With the Echad Project, we gathered 60 of us to talk about our refrigerators and our families and the places where we belong. We sipped canned rosé on the steps of the sanctuary, and we began to weave real relationships with one another. And during Sukkot, we're going to have a block party on Garfield Place, where all the committees and teams and groups will have a table to invite each other in to help us all find our people. And with live music and food, and I'm told possibly some carnival games, we will meet one another face to face and explore new ways of connecting right here. You know, it's magical to be part of a congregation that is big and vibrant and full. And it's also easy to maybe feel a little bit lost in a big community, or to just not have found your way in yet. That's not weird or surprising, and it's also not the end of the story. During this year, we will begin building small groups, small, intentional, holy gatherings of people, building connections with one another. Maybe around what you love to do, hiking or cooking or writing or knitting or whittling. I'm going to join the whittling group. Or maybe around study, or maybe around our neighborhoods, or Shabbat dinners, or by the life stage we are in now. And I am so glad to tell you that we have recently welcomed Rabbi Jason Gitlin to CBE. He's going to give a wave now. This is Rabbi Jason Gitlin here in the flesh. We have recently welcomed him here to partner with all of us to lead this vision that was birthed by our senior rabbi, Rachel Timoner, to create bright lines of connection between us all. Rabbi Gitlin will have a table at that block party, and he'll be listening. And then after, he and I and a team of lay leaders, maybe you, will grab some coffee and we'll find out, what do you want to do here? Who do you want to meet and fall in congregant love with? Who are your Avengers? And how do you want to gather? Imagine that there's someone here now in this room or somewhere in this community that you might not even know yet, but might be someone that you come to love, respect, and enjoy. Share ideas with or laughter with, confide in, take new risks with, feel comfort in. There is someone here looking at you and wondering if that person might be you. We are in potentia, the beginning words of each other's next chapter. We've been away from each other for a long time. Maybe as we return in all kinds of ways, we return differently, curious about what or who we might find that will be a healing balm for what has been and what still is. What new or renewed relationships might be a spark that lights up whatever comes next. And maybe you're thinking, she's not talking about me. I have little kids that take up all my time, or I work insane hours and can't possibly, or I am pretty much homebound, or I don't know anyone and this is for insiders. Let me tell you, I am speaking directly to you. We live in a time when it is easy to be anonymous, to get into a rut, to forget to make time to nurture our souls. We live in a time when it's easy to think someone else is worthy of something that we are not worthy of. If there were ever a time to decide to take a step towards one another, to do something that heals our soul, now is that time. Over time and with the help of everyone in this sanctuary, everyone here and in that sanctuary, is that where they are? Yes. Everyone who is virtually joining us, and even those who didn't know that they were welcome and wanted here today, we will keep on becoming a community where everyone has people and everyone is seen and heard and held. We will look at each other and like Ruth did, we will say, "You are my people. Where shall we go together?" We join a long tradition of seeking that magical tingle of what it feels like when the people gather, when we assemble, when we draw near, when we community up. Our journey to find our people and our place is ancient and it is now. Philosopher Martin Buber taught all actual life is encounter. Encounter as in meeting, connecting, and entwining our souls, mattering to one another when we need it most. This is what can happen when we gather well. As this new year begins, may we encounter one another in ways that fill us and begin to heal the long months of separation. May we gather with one another in ways that add sweetness to our lives. May we assemble in ways large and small and manifest that great tingle of possibility that comes when we look around and say, "These are my people and this is my place. I have found my place here." Shana Tova Umituka, a sweet and a good and a healthy new year to us all.